Music. The chamber lay in silence after the tally. 100 counselors, each from a different star-spanning race, had marked their vote upon the holoslate. The results pulsed in harsh red, 97 in favor, 3 opposed. Earth was chosen for invasion. Counselor Theok of the Varn Dominion leaned back, mandibles twitching with smug pleasure. Primitive apes with delusions of worth, he sneered. They'll collapse within a cycle. Their worlds are rich iron, uranium, geothermal veins. Let them howl while we strip them bare. None voiced dissent. Not openly, at least. Earth's presence on the galactic stage had come far too late. Their transmissions, crude bursts of culture, conflict, music, and war, were intercepted only a decade earlier. Most assumed they were still locked in tribal squabbles, brandishing sharpened metal, or tearing themselves apart in endless feuds. Too emotional. Too unstable. Too human. What the Council failed to grasp was what made humans dangerous. It wasn't their weapons, those were relics. It wasn't their ships, they had barely touched interstellar flight. It was something older, primal. 12 days after the Council's decree, a stealth probe slid into Earth's orbit. No broadcast, only quiet surveillance. It lasted less than 8 minutes. A missile struck cold, sudden, merciless. No warning. No recovery. Aboard the flagship Corin dreadnought, hidden in a solar shadow beyond Jupiter, General Vec observed the planetary scans with casual arrogance. They haven't even noticed us. Cloaking holds. This will be precise. Surgical. His adjutant, a young Tari named Breen, cleared his throat. Sir, something unusual. 2 vessels just launched from the surface. Small, fast, unregistered. Deploy interceptors. Bring them in intact, not wrecked. Ravachi, let's see what Earth calls a pilot. He didn't admit it aloud, but he was curious. Curious to glimpse the shape of courage inside a primate's skull. 2 hours later, only 1 interceptor limped back. It drifted, canopy cracked wide, pilot gone. In his place was a single object jammed into the console. Foreign, crude, heavy. A crowbar. No bomb. No device. Just a dense, curved bar of steel. Is this supposed to be a threat? Breen asked quietly. Freevac said nothing. But for the first time in his career, his throat tightened dry. On Earth, 2 men sat in a dim bunker buried beneath the Rockies. The air stank of oil, concrete, and gunmetal. One, scarred across the temple, lit a cigarette and leaned over a glowing tactical map. They've ringed the moon. Blockade lines. Patrols locked in orbit. They think we're boxed in, he muttered. The other didn't answer immediately. He was fastening an exosuit onto his arm. A half-patched relic of old war tech fused with human improvisation. What's the move, Captain? The scarred man asked. The second finally spoke, voice gravel, low. Steady, we're going up there. They'll cut us down before we clear orbit. Not if we make them think we're cargo haulers. By the time their scans finish, the captain smirked. We'll already be gone. He flipped a switch, the map table flaring to life. A dreadnought shimmered into view, idle beyond Mars. They want a demonstration? He said. Then we'll remind them why Earth was never broken. On the Council's homeworld, the 3 dissenters, the only votes cast against invasion, sat in silence. They had studied humans differently, not with probes or numbers, but through history, through battlefields, through words from Hiroshima, Verdun, Fallujah, and Stalingrad. One, a blind aquatic oracle from the Tulare pools, whispered, "They do not fight to win. They fight because surrender is unthinkable." But his voice was drowned under the roar of conquest. And already it was too late. That night, 3 ships clawed free of Earth's gravity. Not sleek. Not polished. Not even proven. They were cobbled hybrids, part stolen alien scraps, part relics welded from humanity's furious past in the skies. One ran on cannibalized airliner engines. Another carried a missile guidance core scavenged from Cold War relics. Crude, desperate machines. But they didn't need elegance. They needed only speed and fire. Inside the lead vessel, Captain Ree tightened his harness, a battered sidearm strapped at his thigh. He wasn't a pilot. None of them were. Every man there had fought in the dirt, bled in real wars, not simulations. They weren't picked for finesse. They were chosen for a single truth. They knew how to die loudly. Ree glanced at the flickering monitor by his knee-stitched feeds hacked from old satellites and hijacked networks. The image showed 8 predators lurking in orbit, cloaked but revealed by human pattern-spotting code an algorithm some teenager had written between history homework and instant noodles. We pushed past the first patrol, dropped decoys, then split, Ree muttered. 2 heads for Mars, 3 swings around the moon. I strike the jugular. Jugular meaning that beast parked beyond Mars? His co-pilot grinned, tattoos curling over knuckles, eyes bright with the thrill. That's the one, the dreadnought. If I'm lucky, I get close. If I'm really lucky, I get inside. And if you're not? Ree smirked. Then they learn what a corpse looks like at Mach 20. The tattooed man laughed, slammed the ignition, and the vessel tore skyward, aboard the Corothan dreadnought. Klaxons wailed before the human craft even pierced the ionosphere. They launched again, Breen rasped, staring at 3 pulsing red blips. General Revek leaned forward, slitted eyes narrowing. Same class as before. Heavy shields, erratic vectors. They're not flying in formation odd. No odds human, Bravak said, voice sour. Launch every interceptor. No survivors. If they eject, destroy the pods. No prisoners. For a heartbeat, Breen hesitated. The memory of the crowbar, the missing interceptor crew, how easily Earth turned chaos into tactic, gnawed at him. Then he gave the order. Ree watched the dark forms converge, black shapes with angry, glowing eyes. He tapped the console twice. Deploy decoys. The sides of the 3 craft peeled back, vomiting dozens of small spinning pods, heat markers, movement mimics, targeting confounders. The alien interceptors, fast but literal in logic, streaked toward the most probable threats. 2 human ships peeled away. Ree did not. He slammed the throttle. Come on, you alien bastards, he hissed. Taste vengeance. On the dreadnought's bridge, tensions snapped tight. One's coming straight at us, Breen blurted, stunned. Not evading, heading head-on. Fools, spat Bravak. Bring main cannon to bear. Fire solution trajectory 12.5. Open fire. The guns did not answer. Systems died for 6 long seconds. Far below, in an abandoned Antarctic lab, a Black Ops team roared. Their payload hidden in a music file downloaded off Earth's busted global net had slipped into the dreadnought systems 2 days earlier. 6 seconds, that was Ree's window. He ripped power, rerouted everything to heat shielding. The dreadnought towered above him, a layered fortress of obsidian armor. It was not a ship. It was a citadel. Ree aimed for the exposed lower flank, the hangar half open, unsealed. Speed was permissioned. At the last 1,000 kilometers, enemy fire woke. Lasers, pulse bolts, gravity snares automated, lethal. Shields screamed and bowed. A wing tore free. Air leaked with a hiss. Yet he didn't falter. At the final instant he launched, the cockpit spewing him in an ejection pod, small, fast, packed with explosives. The pod punched through the hangar field and slammed like a comet into steel. Inside the dreadnought, order collapsed into chaos. Council Command didn't even know of the breach for 2 hours. By then Ree had done the impossible. He had not sunk the dreadnought. He'd done worse. He'd humiliated it. With scavenged parts and raw improvisation, he crippled their drives, lifted encrypted star charts, and set off a chain reaction in their fuel bays. He didn't obliterate the ship, he gutted it, and vanished out an airlock with half their data cores clutched to his chest. One human duct tape, madness, and a death wish walked out with their secrets. Back on Earth, governments argued while the old UN skeletoned in the background. Militias and warbands answered to results, not nations. And the man at the center of it all sat in a cold Alaskan warehouse, shirtless, bruised, sipping whiskey. "You hit them?" An official demanded. Dot asked, leaning over the table, sweat pouring down his neck. "I didn't hit him. I embarrassed them," Ree said, pouring another glass. "They came thinking we were bugs. I showed them we're roaches, unkillable, annoying, and we breed in darkness." Nobody laughed. One of the younger tacticians leaned forward. "They'll retaliate." "Let them," Ree said. Far across the galaxy on the Council's main moon station, a meeting was called. Not all the counselors attended. Some were dead. Some had vanished after Earth's first few strikes. Others were simply too afraid to show their faces. The surviving counselors sat in silent disbelief as the footage played on a loop. The moment Ree entered the dreadnought, his image blurred and frantic, a man who had no right to be there. One of the older counselors slammed his hand on the table. "We declared war on barbarians." The Tari seer looked up again, blind eyes glowing faintly. "No," he said. "We declared war on the descendants of every monster we ever feared." No one responded. On the dreadnought, Breen walked through the ruins of the lower engine bay. Corpses floated, some burnt, others frozen. He found a wall scorched with words, burned in by hand. "Next time we send more." Breen swallowed hard. And for the first time, he understood the message. It wasn't a threat. It was a promise. Back in Earth, Ree opened the encrypted data and smiled. It wasn't just star maps. It wasn't just fleet locations. It was the Council's archive. War strategies, species biology, weak points, and most importantly, infighting, civil conflicts, grudges. They were. Each key he tapped cracked open another layer of the stolen Council data. Bits and pieces, names, coordinates, species with internal fractures, and ancient hatreds ducked, taped together under the illusion of galactic order. He smirked. "They're not a coalition," he muttered. "They're a pile of enemies pretending they don't hate each other." Behind him, Commander Briggs walked in, older, lean, a limp in his right leg from a botched raid in Jakarta. He chewed toothpicks like they were cigarettes, always clicking them between his teeth when he was stressed. He was clicking now. "So what's our angle?" Briggs asked. Ree leaned back. "We stopped thinking like defenders. That's what they expect for us to stay down here, hiding in bunkers, scraping for air and intel. We flipped the game." Briggs crossed his arms. "You mean hit them?" "I mean break them. Not just one ship, not a raid. We fracture their entire alliance." "How?" Reese turned to the third screen. A species profile loaded. The Sorens, tall, predatory, lizard-like creatures with a deep culture of honor and a blood feud against the narrow. They're aquatic, more sophisticated rivals. They had fought for centuries before the Council forced a ceasefire. According to the records, the ceasefire was one Council vote away from collapse. Ree grinned. "We give them a reason to start it up again." 6,000 light years away, the Council's war chamber wasn't under lockdown. Not for safety, for shame. The news had spread faster than any official transmission. A lone human had boarded a Council dreadnought, disabled it, and walked away with their military intelligence files. Half the outer systems had already begun to question the Council's strength. Trade routes were being challenged. Pirates, human-inspired pirates, had started using crowbars and guerrilla tactics in deep space raids. Morale was crumbling. The of the Varn Dominion, who had once laughed at the very idea of Earth resistance, now seethed behind sealed doors. His species had suffered the most since the breach. 2 supply depots gone, 1 embassy firebombed. Primitives, he snarled. They think this proves superiority, that one man can shame the council. Across the room, the Tari seer stirred. Not one man, he said. An idea. You made them desperate. You gave them purpose. That's more dangerous than any weapon. The pointed a claw. Then we erase the idea. We burn Earth to glass. No prisoners, no messages. But the council president shook his head. He was a stoic, frail insectoid woes calm, had once brokered peace between four warring systems. Now his voice barely masked the fear. Retaliation won't undo this. We strike too hard, and the outer systems revolt. Then what? Control the narrative. Say the breach was internal sabotage, a traitor. Anything? The slammed his clawed fist into the table. They saw him. He wrote on our walls with fire. No one replied because the truth was worse than any lie. Humanity had shown its teeth. In the Black Zone, a lawless region between Council territory and neutral stars, 3 cloaked ships emerged from hyperspace. Their insignia none. Their crew, all human. Ree stood at the helm of the lead ship. It wasn't his first command, and it wouldn't be his last. Their mission wasn't destruction. It was seduction. A strike team led by Briggs had been sent to a Saurian outpost, disguised as council inspectors. They wore artificial scales, mimicked posture, even downloaded speech patterns. They didn't need to trick the Saurians, just push them. One carefully leaked message, one ignored video, a fabricated call between gnarled command ships mocking the Saurians, claiming humans were their dogs, weapons on leashes. It was enough. The Saurian general barked an order. Wear return to war. Burn the fish. Just like that, the first crack in the council's armor split wide open. By the time Council Command heard about the Saurian assault on Nariel outposts, it was too late. Entire fleets turned on each other. Every attempt at negation dissolved under accusations and retribution. The war Ree wanted had started, and Earth hadn't fired a single shot. Back in the underground command center, Briggs leaned over the table, watching the chaos unfold across 20 different screens. This is madness, he said, almost in disbelief. Ree didn't look up. No, this is balance. We've been fighting to survive. Now they fight each other to keep power. They're bleeding from the inside, Briggs grunted. You realize they were going to know it's us eventually. Ree finally turned. His eyes were hard-no, colder than the Arctic ice above them. Let them. While the Council scrambled to stabilize its power, Earth shifted. Bunkers became training grounds, abandoned labs were resurrected. Nations that once hated each other now funneled everything they had into one cause, vengeance. For every satellite the Council destroyed, Earth launched 2 more. For every human ship shot down, 3 rose in its place. They stopped waiting to be invaded. They stopped reacting. They started hunting. Ree stood alone in a hangar, watching the next generation of human ships being built. They were still rough, metal welded by hand, systems run by wire instead of code. But every one of them carried something the Council could never manufacture, resolve. A young engineer approached holding a data slate. Sir, prototype for the M-Core disruptor is online. It'll shut down any Council shield within range. Ree nodded. Good. Keep the pulse dirty. I want it to fry their computers. Make them feel it. Yes, sir. And the message, the engineer hesitated. You're sure you want it broadcasted before each strike? Ree turned toward him, voice like gravel. Word for word. The engineer nodded. The message was simple. This is Earth. You came for blood. No will come for yours. Across the galaxy, Council systems began shutting down. Trade stopped. Alliances fractured, war spread, and in the shadows, humans moved like ghosts, unseen, unbound, unmerciful. On a Council supply moon, a transport carrying over 2,000 soldiers exploded mid-launch. Investigators found the cause. An explosive embedded in a food crate labeled humanitarian rations. A trap. A message. And inside the ruins, scratched into the walls, Anotherphus. We learn fast. Ree stood over a map covered in Reddits. Each one marked a system hit by human hands. Some were direct strikes. Others were sabotages. A few were whispers that turned into civil wars. Briggs stared at it too, arms folded. We're winning. Ree shook his head. Not yet. They still think we're a mistake. A virus. Something they can cleanse. Then what do we do? Ree stared at the largest dot. Beconsil's capital planet. We show them we're not a virus. He said, we're evolution. They called it Operation Black Vein, and the one who signed on expected to come back. The target wasn't just any outpost. It was Marith 4, the logistical heart of the Council's inner ring supply chain. It was a moon-sized fortress orbiting the dying star of Ivos, shielded by layered turrets, automate fleets, and surveillance so tight, not even asteroid dust could pass through without triggering alarms. No human had ever gotten close to it, which is why Ree chose it. He stared at 3D rendering on the war table, its details drawn from stolen schematics and ments of deep signal leaks. The Council believed it untouchable, the kind of arrogance built over centuries of dominance. We take this, Ree said, pointing to the glowing heart of the station, and we send a message across every system that their safety is an illusion. The room was silent, not because they doubted him, but because they knew him and it. Reese rode aboard the Wraith, a stealth dropship forged from the skeleton of a downed Council frigate and welded in a Siberian hangar by ex-miners and former war criminals. It wasn't pretty. It wasn't clean. It was perfect. Inside, the crew was stripped down. A skeleton team of 12 men. No ranks, no ceremony, just killers, engineers, and ghosts with nothing left to lose. Beside Ree sat Merrick, a former demolitions expert with one eye, a fused wrist, and a tattoo of his dead son's name on his throat. You know this is suicide, Merrick said as he strapped in. Reyes tightened his harness. Yeah, and you're good with that? Ree didn't answer, just stared out the viewport at the stars blinking like indifferent gods. He wasn't good with it. He was ready for it. The drop into Ivo space was clean, far cleaner than anyone expected. The automated surveillance grid was down for exactly 4.7 seconds, thanks to a virus that Earth had snuck into a merchant vessel 7 months ago. They were inside the system before the Council even realized a ship had breached the perimeter. Ree stood behind me, watching as the Maref station loomed ahead like a dead city in orbit. Lights flickered across its underbelly. Small defense ships drifted in lazy circles, confident that nothing from Earth would ever dare get this close again. Set us to freefall, Ree said. You serious? Do it. The Wraith's engines died mid-rift. From this point on, they were just space junk. Another piece of debris shedding for the trash zone near the lower decks. The ship groaned, metal screeching as atmospheric entry scraped across the station's shield bubble. By the time the Council caught it, it was already too late. They landed like a virus in a wound. Silent, unnoticed, and deadly. Ree moved fast through the lower maintenance corridors. Every hull warrior of antiseptic and metal. The lights were too clean, the air too sterile. It felt like walking through the bones of something ancient and diseased. They didn't speak. Every second mattered. The objective was clear. Plant the core crasher, an EMP laced with Earth's custom-designed corruption virus, and crippled the Marith station from the inside. But as they reached the central chamber, alarms screamed. They'd been spotted. A Council patrol rounded the corner, weapons raised, mouths open to scream a warning, and Merrick dropped 2 of them with homemade slugs before they blinked. One of the soldiers fired, hitting Reese in the side. He dropped. By the time Council Command knew what was happening, tens of thousands were already rotting from the inside out. Briggs stood in the dark war chamber back on Earth. Half the room was scorched from a previous raid, walls cracked, wires hanging. He didn't care. He didn't need comfort, just results. A young tech came in trembling. "Commander, a report say Council civilian colonies are starting to abandon their posts. Refugees are flooding fringe systems. Some say they want to surrender." Briggs didn't even look up. "Do they bleed?" The tech blinked. "What?" Briggs turned. "Do they bleed?" The kid nodded. Briggs stared cold. "Then they're not done paying yet." Across the stars, a word began to spread. Not in Council tongues, not in Earth's dialects. A new word burned into the tongues of smugglers, pirates, defectors, soldiers, slaves. Rispern, it meant rage. It meant retribution. It meant someone who didn't just fight, but made the stars bleed. It became a religion to some, to others a warning, and to the Council a curse. Bino, Council fleets had gone from offensive to reactive. They couldn't predict where Earth would strike next. Guerrilla cells were popping up in systems they thought were secured. Their own soldiers were refusing orders, terrified of being posted to Earth-targeted sectors. The Council president, the same one who had calmly voted to invade Earth a year ago, now sat in Aaron-forced panic vault, buried beneath a molten planet, his once silver armor knotted with fear. "This wasn't supposed to happen," he muttered. "You didn't listen," said his guard. "You poked the ape." "No," the president whispered, eyes haunted. "We poked something worse." The Council had never sued for peace in its entire history. Not once. Not when member species fought to extinction. Not when the Nahari plague devoured 9 systems. Not even when an AI uprising wiped out half their central archives. But now they begged. The message came through a flickering static choked transmission routed through 12 relay satellites, 3 encrypted servers, and 1 reluctantly cooperative trade vessel. Commander Briggs listened to it in silence. The Council president's voice was hollow, brittle, and soaked in panic. "We acknowledge recent tragedies. We acknowledge Earth's strength. We offer terms. Ceasefire immediate. Full withdrawal of Council presence from Sol and adjacent sectors. Reparations can be negotiated." Briggs didn't blink. He stared at the screen with the same face he wore at Reese's grave. Same clenched jaw, sand-dead eyes. Then he reached over and shut the transmission off mid-sentence. "I'm not interested in terms," he said coldly. A lieutenant shifted uneasily beside him. "Sir, they're scared." "Good. They're offering to pull back. They don't get to decide when this ends." Briggs turned to the room full of hardened commanders, ex-mercenaries, scientists turned weapons engineers, exiles and ghosts. "Do you think glassing our cities deserves a ceasefire?" Nobody spoke. "They called us a disease, a mistake. They wanted our resources, our children, our future." He leaned forward. "They don't get to surrender. Not yet. Not until every last one of them feels what we felt when the sky burned red and the ground swallowed our people." He made his decision that same night. He would lead Earth's first planetary rotation. Not a station, not a shipyard, not an outpost. A home world. The chosen target was Yatan, a lush green-blue planet in the heart of Council space, homeworld of the Thari species, one of the oldest and most influential voices on the Council. Their representatives were the ones who first proposed Earth's invasion. Briggs wanted them to pay, not just with blood, with legacy. "We'll hit their cultural vaults first," he ordered. "Burn their temples, level their archives, turn their art to ash, make them feel history vanish." Earth's fleet wasn't massive, but it was relentless. Each ship was a floating coffin of steel and spite. Each captain, a man who had lost everything. They emerged from slipspace above Yatan, like shadows from a nightmare. No warning, no diplomacy, just fire. Thari air defenses scrambled, but faltered within minutes. They weren't used to ground invasions. They weren't used to fighting enemies who didn't want Tadak. Briggs's flagship, Ghost of Re, led the charge. They didn't deploy troops. They dropped tears. Earth's newest orbital bomb, nicknamed for the long smoke trails they left as they fell. Each one struck with the fury of a god betrayed. Temples fell. Universities collapsed. Statues that had stood for 1,000 years shattered in a heartbeat. And in the sky, hovering just above the atmosphere, Earth broadcast a looped message in a dozen languages. You wanted our silence. Now listen to the sound of your legacy burning. In the Council's central fortress, a panic meeting was held. They didn't speak in diplomatic tones anymore. They screamed, "They're destroying Jayton, our capital. They've bypassed every known defense corridor. How? Where are our enforcements?" But the reinforcements weren't coming. The Council had lost too many supply routes. Too many ships had defected. The virus Earth had unleashed. Whisper rot still tore through their communications grid. They were isolated and worse. They were afraid. The president, now pale and aged, sat silently while chaos exploded around him. He had no orders left to give, no allies left to trust, because Earth had done the one thing no enemy ever had. It had turned the galaxy against them. Back on Jayton, Briggs stood among the ashes of what was once the high temple of Varun. The building had been 10 stories tall, carved from living crystal, glowing with internal light. Now it was rubble and molten slag. He crouched by the cracked remains of a Dhari sculpture, half-melted, its un-Caesarian face twisted in agony. He picked up a shard, turned it in his gloved hand. Behind him, one of the younger soldiers approached. "Sir, they've retreated. No more resistance." Briggs stood slowly, gathered the survivors. The soldier blinked. "Order, sir. Put them in front of a broadcast feed. Make them watch what happens next." The soldier hesitated. And then Briggs turned. His face was stone. No graves, no mercy, no future. The broadcast went live across every surviving Council-linked relay station. It showed the captured civilians of Yatan, huddled, trembling, forced to watch as Earth's machines razed everything around them. It showed Briggs standing at the heart of their ruins, speaking calmly. "This is the price of arrogance. This is the cost of genocide. You wanted our resources. You wanted our surrender." He leaned closer to Thecamera, voice dropping low. "Now you'll give us your fear." He clicked a remote behind him. The last archive tower, their hall of memories, torqued, exploded. Raining data shards and screams, transmission cut. In the days that followed, 10 more systems defected from the Council. Some out of fear, some out of guilt, all out of respect. And Earth didn't stop. They didn't pause to gloat or negotiate. They just moved on one by one, targeting not armies, but ideas, centers of culture, history, identity, because Earth didn't want peace. Not anymore. They wanted the Council to forget who they were. In a dim war room bunker on Earth, Briggs sat with a worn notebook. He flipped through it, page after page of names. Children, teachers, friends gone in the glassing. He added one more to the list. JATA and erased. He didn't smile. He didn't sigh. He just closed the book, set it down, and looked at the map. Hundreds of systems still loyal to the Council. Head up the next one. Carvos. Carvos was barely ash when the order was signed. The once prosperous world had been reduced to a red wasteland. Its oceans boiled off by 3 coordinated orbital strikes, each orchestrated by Earth's satellite-jammed precision software, handcrafted by a team of ex-hackers and disgraced AI engineers who no longer believed in laws. Commander Briggs didn't watch the destruction. He didn't need to. He just stared at the next red dot on the map, one of hundreds, and circled it with a piece of charcoal taken from the ruins of a burned-out Earth schoolhouse. The officer beside him, younger and still pretending hope mattered, finally spoke. "Sir, intel suggests the Council is attempting something unconventional, not military." Briggs raised an eyebrow. "Assassination," the officer said quietly. "They've hired someone, a contract team." Briggs coughed. "They think cutting the head ends the storm. They think you're the only one holding this together. They're wrong." Deep in the crumbling remains of the Council's Central Security Division, a secret team was assembled. 4 beings. None of them citizens. All of them ghosts. The Council called them Unit Zero because officially they had never existed. Mercenaries, bounty hunters, and failed experiments, pulled from the black archives of forgotten wars. Their target, Briggs, the most wanted human in galactic history. Reward for proof of death. 7 Council worlds worth of credits. But they weren't doing it for money. They were doing it because they were told he was a myth, and they didn't believe in myths. Briggs knew they'd come eventually. He didn't flinch. He moved his command to a decommissioned orbital wreck called Skyrave, a forgotten mining station orbiting the blackened husk of Earth's first space elevator. A place so irradiated event Council drones avoided it. The perfect trap. He posted no guards, broadcasted no alerts, just waited. They arrived in silence. No fanfare, no explosion. Just 4 figures in vacuum black armor moving through the halls like shadows with weapons fused to their bones. Their language wasn't spoken. It was thought. The first, a serpentine creature called Sir, moved through vents, skin changing color to match metal. The second, a hulking brute bred for war, known only as the Maw, carried a gravity hammer so dense it bent air. The third, a cybernetic telepath Nemedris, could fry synapses with a blink. And the fourth, no one knew, just Kaledno. No he. Back on Earth, Command watched the signal flicker. "They're in," someone whispered. Anatherna did. "Half the station's comms are down. They're scrambling." And in the war room beneath Iceland's dead glaciers, a countdown began. If the crasher detonated inside the station's core, the pulse wouldn't just disable Marathur. It would send a ripple across satellites, fleets, and relay posts, showing every species in the galaxy one simple truth. The Council bled inside the core chamber. The lights were flickering. Reese and Merrick dropped the crasher beside the control column. "Timer or remote?" Merrick asked. Ree hesitated. He looked at the readout, then at the cracked viewport showing the stars blinking behind the security shield. "Timer. Give me 20 minutes. You're not coming back, are you?" Ree shrugged. "They think we don't sacrifice, that we don't commit." "You sure you want to be the myth?" Ree turned. "Number, I want to be the mistake they never recover from." The rest of the team exfiltrated through the sewage tunnel carved from the station's waste system. It wasn't pretty. It wasn't safe. But they got out. Reese stayed behind. He limped through the station, bleeding and broken, but upright. He entered the central command chamber and activated the emergency intercom. Across Marith 4 and through its network, uplink, a human face appeared on every screen. Re-scarred, bleeding, grinning. "This is Earth," he said, voice low and clear. "You voted to invade. You thought we're weak. You thought we'd crawl." He held up the detonator. "You were wrong." Then the screen went black. The explosion wasn't flashy. It was ugly, raw, corrupt, primal. The crasher didn't just detonate. It consumed. It ate through Marith 4's circuits like acid, melted its defenses, scrambled its communications. Every ship within 5,000 kilometers went dark. Earth's signal, the message, rode the shockwave across Thesters. "We are not yours. We are not prey. We are the future." Council command collapsed into panic. Supply routes died. Reinforcements stalled. Fleets trapped in deep space with no guidance, no fuel, no idea what had just happened. And in their silence, fear began to whisper. This is what humans do. They don't fight wars. They end them. 3 days later, Reese's body was recovered in a small scavenger drone. The council never got it. The humans did. And when they buried him, no state funeral, no flags, no songs, just dirt and a headstone carved with his own words. We don't fight to win. We fight because we refuse to lose. In the following weeks, Earth didn't just gain ground. It gained followers. Small planets under council oppression began to rebel. Mercenary crews defected. Council supply captains went dark, joining the resistance or disappearing with Earth's offers of freedom. Marth 4 was never rebuilt. It became a symbol, a ghost station, a grave. And every time the council told the story, the name they feared most wasn't a species. It was a man. They thought it would end with Re. The council's mistake wasn't underestimating him. It was assuming he was the peak of human resistance, that his death would scare the rest into crawling back underground like frightened vermin. But what they didn't understand was what Re became. Not a soldier, a blueprint. Across Earth's fractured zones, from the ruins of Paris to the iron domes of what is to be Beijing, his message was more than remembered. It was repeated. Burn it into the backs of bomber jackets, scrolled on missile casings, carved into helmets. We fight because we refuse to lose. Commander Briggs stood on the edge of the launch deck at Site 9, staring into the swirling storm that had swallowed the northern ice fields. His right leg ached in the cold. The wound from Jakarta always did in bad weather. He'd buried Reese with his own hands, dug the hole with a rusted shovel alone because no one else had the guts to see him go into the ground. And now, 12 weeks after the Marith detonation, he'd received the data Reed died to deliver. He read it twice, then once more, then walked into the command chamber and said only one thing. Prep every ship we've got. The Council's retaliation didn't come as a single strike. It came as a massacre, not on the battlefield, but from orbit. They picked 5 human-cities, 5 centers of resistance, and glassed them. No demands, no speeches, no warning, just silence. Then fire. From space, their ships hovered, launching thermal detonators and bioreactive incendiaries designed to cook everything beneath. Oceans boiled, buildings melted, children vaporized before they could scream. They erased over 200 million lives in one night. When the transmissions reached Earth's Central Command, no one spoke for nearly 20 minutes, not even Briggs. He just watched the footage again and again and again until his jaw clenched so hard his teeth cracked. Then he turned, spit blood into a rag and said, "Send the message." The message was simple. Every council world with a defense network linked to the Marith grid, which was nearly all of them, began receiving a data surge. Not a virus, a video, unfiltered, raw. It showed one of the glass cities. A camera drone hovering low, recording rows of charred body and melted skin. A child clutching a doll fused to her hand. A father's skeleton curled over a son's. Then it cut to Briggs. He didn't scream. Hadn't cry. He looked into the camera like it owed him money. "This was your answer to defiance," Hess said. "We gave you a chance to retreat, to reconsider. You answered with fire." He paused. "Now we answer." Briggs took Fleet Omega, Earth's first true offensive battle group, and punched through the outer systems like a rusted blade. The ships weren't elegant. They were monsters built from rage and broken satellites. Every one of them painted with graffiti and scars from 1,000 old wars. Their flagship was renamed the Ghost of Re, and the first target wasn't military. It was symbolic. A council world called Zora Prime, home to their history archives, museums, art, and the oldest genetic records of every species in the Alliance. Briggs ordered total annihilation, spare no buildings, no monuments, no data. Let them remember nothing but loss. They bombed it for 7 hours straight. By the time they left orbit, there wasn't a single square meter of history left. Only black ash. Across the galaxy, Council citizens panicked. The humans had always been underestimated, but this was no longer rebellion. This was strategic rage, and it was contagious. Other planets previously bound by fear off the Council began to riot, not in favor of Earth, but against their own rulers. "If they can bleed," a protester said on live broadcast, "then we are not slaves." The Council regrouped. They deployed the Purge Protocol, a banned military tactic used only once in history. A biological weapon called Sirix-9, airborne, invisible, designed to target human DNA specifically and kill within 90 seconds off exposure. They dropped it into Earth's upper atmosphere over the southern hemisphere. 5 warships, 5 payloads. But something happened. Nothing died. No alarms, no sickness, no screens. The ships that dropped the weapon were ambushed mid-retreat by cloaked fighters. They didn't even detect until after impact. 4 of the 5 were destroyed. The 5th was hijacked and turned around, crashing into a Council listening station on a distant moon, wiping it from the system. What Council didn't know was that Earth had already intercepted the weapon specs weeks earlier. Reese's data haul from Earth 4 had it all. And instead of fearing it, Earth reverse-engineered the virus. They rebuilt it, redesigned it, and reloaded it. Now it could target any non-human species. Earth named it Whisper Rot, and they didn't use it as a bomb. They slipped it into the Council's water filtration systems across a dozen stations using merchant ships and bribed engineers. The deaths were slow, quiet,